Right now, somewhere on your console or PC, there is a save file. A game you were obsessed with, a game you recommended to people, a game you called one of your favorites, and yet you haven't touched it in weeks, maybe months. Not because it got bad, not because you got bored, you just stopped. And the strangest part, you still love it. So why did you leave? That question has a real answer, and it has almost nothing to do with the game. Setting the stage. Game completion rate in 2025 sat at just 43%. 43%. That means the majority of games people play never get finished. And that number only counts games people actually started. It doesn't count the ones sitting in libraries never even launched. In 2025, the global player base reached 3.6 billion people. Total hours played across all platforms hit 444 billion. 3.5 billion people, 444 billion hours, and yet more than half of every game started gets abandoned. That is not a simple problem, that is a structural shift in how gamers relate to the medium they claim to love. And here's what makes it genuinely interesting. The games people abandon aren't the bad ones. Bad games are easy to quit. You stop because it wasn't worth your time, that's a clean decision. But the games that haunt people, the ones with the unfinished save files that stay on the hard drive for years, those are the ones people loved. And that's the paradox we're unpacking today. Why do we quit the games we actually care about the most? There are 6 reasons, and at least one of them is going to feel uncomfortably personal. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Love and energy are not the same thing. Here's the first and most important thing to understand. Loving a game and having the energy to play it are two completely separate processes in your brain. This is the misconception that causes more guilt than anything else in gaming. People assume that if they truly loved the game, they would want to play it. And when they don't want to play it, when they sit down and feel nothing, they conclude that maybe they didn't love it as much as they thought. That's wrong. Here's the psychological reality. Games require effort. Every game, even the relaxing ones, demands decisions, attention, emotional investment, and active engagement. And after a full day of work, of stress, of social obligation, of whatever life demands from you, your brain is depleted. And a depleted brain does not want to make decisions. It wants the path of least resistance. And that path is scrolling, short videos, passive entertainment that asks nothing from you. And so the game you love sits there, genuinely loved, genuinely wanted, but your exhausted brain keeps choosing the easier option instead. Gaming fatigue is hitting harder than ever in 2026. Whether you're juggling life service updates, grinding battle passes, or just trying to keep up with the endless content cycle, the burnout is real and more common than you'd think. So the first uncomfortable truth is this. Sometimes you don't quit games because you stopped loving them. You quit because life changed how much of yourself you have left to give them. Chapter 2. The longer you stay away, the harder it gets. Now here's where it gets worse. You stop playing for 2 weeks, no big deal. Life got busy. But now when you think about going back, something is different. There's resistance where there used to be excitement. Because now you've forgotten the controls, forgotten your build, forgotten where you were in the story, and forgotten why half the quests in your log even exist. And reopening that save file doesn't feel like picking up where you left off. It feels like studying for an exam you stopped preparing for months ago. Psychologists call this re-entry friction, and modern gaming it is brutally real. The backlog anxiety causes anxiety, frustration, self-blame, and an overwhelming lack of autonomy. And the cool irony is that the richer and more complex a game is, the more systems it has, the deeper its world, the worse re-entry friction becomes. The games that deserve your time the most are the hardest to return to after a break. A simple mobile game you can pick up after 6 months and immediately understand, but a 60-hour RPG with a skill tree, a crafting system, 3 faction quest lines, and a political narrative, that's a different proposition entirely. And so the break extends, then extends again. Then the save file is 6 months old, and at that point, opening it feels less like playing a game and more like starting over. And starting over after being halfway through feels like a loss. So you don't. The game stays unfinished, not because you abandoned it emotionally, but just because the gap became too wide to cross. Chapter 3. When games stop feeling like play. This is the chapter that is going to make some game studios uncomfortable. Instead of excitement, new seasons can feel like obligations. Miss a few weeks, and suddenly you're behind, locked out of rewards, or struggling to catch up. Games like Apex Legends and Overwatch 2 have faced backlash for overwhelming players with grind-heavy systems and time-limited exclusives. What was meant to foster loyalty can instead breed resentment, especially when players feel manipulated by aggressive monetization or endless progression loops. And that shift from wanting to play to feeling like you have to play is one of the most corrosive things that can happen to your relationship with a game. And it's not accidental, it's by design. Live service games often tie identity to performance. Ranked modes display visible skill tiers, leaderboards quantify success, and public statistics track win rates, damage outputs, and kill counts. Every balanced patch demands adaptation. Every new season resets progress, requiring players to climb again. And that repetition can feel energizing at first, but eventually it feels exhausting. The numbers tell the story clearly. More than half of 2025's live service games lost over 90% of their players. Of 19 major live service titles tracked, 11 games lost more than 90% of their players on Steam. Players are not leaving because the games got worse, they're leaving because obligation replaced enjoyment. And the moment that happens, the moment you log in because you'll miss rewards rather than because you want to be there, the relationship is already broken. You might keep playing for weeks after that moment, but you're not really there anymore. You're just completing tasks. And eventually, even for a game you genuinely loved, you quit. Not in anger, just in exhaustion. Chapter 4. Sometimes you quit because you love it too much. Here's the strangest reason on this list, and the one people talk about the least. Sometimes you stop playing a game not because the love faded, but because it's too strong. Think about this. Have you ever slowed down near the end of a game because you didn't want it to end? Ever taken a break from a game that was moving you deeply because you wanted to stay in that emotional space a little longer? Ever avoided finishing something because completing it feels like losing it? Players do this constantly, and there's a real psychological mechanism behind it. When a game becomes genuinely meaningful, when it connects with something personal, when it hits emotionally in a way that surprises you, continuing it creates a specific kind of pressure. You want every session to be worthy of the experience. You want to be in the right state of mind. You want to do it properly. And that pressure, that very specific, very loving pressure, kills momentum. You unconsciously avoid the games because you're afraid of ruining it, afraid that the next session won't match the last one, afraid that finishing it will make the magic finite. But leaving games unfinished can lead to cognitive dissonance, a psychological tension that arises when our behavior contradicts our beliefs or values. And abandoning a game midway, especially when deeply invested in its narrative, can feel like a betrayal of commitment, as if you failed the character and yourself. Mediocre games are easy to quit, you just stop. But the ones you love, those carry emotional weight, and emotional weight creates hesitation, and hesitation over time becomes absence. Chapter 5. The Attention War. Nobody is winning. There's a war happening right now, and games are losing it. Not to other games, to everything. TikTok, YouTube Shorts, streaming, infinite scroll, AI generated content, social media platforms designed by teams of engineers whose entire job is to maximize the time you spend not doing anything else. And games, especially the deep, slow, emotionally demanding ones, are caught in the middle. The gaming audience that closed out 2025 is not the audience that opened it. A pile of live service shutdowns, a handful of surprise single player hits, and a generation of buyers who finally decided they would rather wait 6 months for a discount than pre order on faith have produced one of the most observable behavioral shifts the industry has logged in years. Players are becoming more mired, more selective, more aware their attention is finite and genuinely valuable. But awareness doesn't automatically translate into action. Your brain still reaches for the phone, still chooses the 30-second video over the 40-hour RPG. Not because the RPG is less valuable, you know it isn't, but because the phone asks nothing and the game asks everything. Choice brings a sense of overwhelming responsibility, bound up with fear of failure, guilt, and anxiety that regret will follow if you made the wrong choice. So you scroll instead, and the save file waits. Chapter 6. You didn't quit the game, you outgrew the version of yourself that played it. This is the hardest one. Sometimes you quit a game because you changed. Not dramatically, not in any way you necessarily notice, day by day. Just slowly, quietly, in a way that people change without realizing it until something holds up a mirror. The game you loved 2 years ago connected with the version of you that existed then. That version has specific emotional needs, specific amount of time and energy, specific things they were looking for in a game world. And now, something is different. The game didn't change, but you did. This is why revisiting beloved games can feel strange. Backlogs can become masters instead of being slaves. Gaming as a hobby can become another obligation like a job. The healthiest approach is to look at a game collection as a library, not a to-do list. Because some games matter because of when we played them, not because we played them forever. And recognizing that, actually accepting it rather than feeling guilty about it, might be the most important shift a gamer can make. Conclusion. So, why do we quit games we actually love? Because love isn't always enough. Energy runs out, re entry becomes too costly, games that we play become obligation, the love itself creates pressure, attention gets fractured, and sometimes you simply grow past the version of self that needed that specific experience. None of those are failures. They are just the honest reality of being a person who plays games in 2026, a year where 3.6 billion people are playing games across every platform imaginable, in whatever stolen moments their lives allow. But here's what I want to leave you with. An unfinished save file doesn't represent a failure, it represents something that mattered enough to start, and the fact that life got in the way before you finished it doesn't erase what it gave to you while you were there. You don't have to finish something for it to be meaningful. Sometimes the most honest thing you can do is to let a game be what it was, a chapter, not a commitment, and close it without guilt. And the question I want to leave you with is this: what games are you carrying right now? The ones you loved but haven't touched? The ones with the same file that you keep meaning to go back to? Tell me in the comments and tell me honestly, do you think you'll ever go back? I'm Silver. This is Silver's Edge. And if you think deeply about games, why we play them, why we stop, what they actually mean, subscribe. Because this is the conversation I'm here to have. Until next time, stay silver.